I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, June the 21st, brought to you in part by the Night Latch Group. That's Andy Cunningham in Laverne, Oklahoma, guys. He wants you to hang on to your investment. He can help you with all kinds of products. He's an LRP guy, crop insurance, drought insurance, which you need to be getting in on in a hurry here if you want to get that done, and especially your gross margin policies, where he can show you how you can hedge your cattle and your feed costs in one easy policy. For more information, go to nightlatch.net. Can we go higher? It seems like we've been hitting a wall here over the last few weeks since we got your northern fat cattle up to $190, and that was a big price, and then $3 in the beef. And we've fallen back a little bit. We've got a right to continue to go on, but we're not having any luck with that, even though we're in here in a week that was abbreviated early in the week by a federal holiday, and now we're in essence in a short week, going for a long week, which is traditionally a big slaughter week, running ahead of 4th of July holiday. But it's evident that June live cattle futures are not going to get close to converging with your cash fat cattle price. They were down another $1.22 on Tuesday, sitting at 177.12. We saw a little bit of trade in the mid 180s. How it's going to get back up there, we're not sure, and there's no really way that it can converge now, because there's nothing on the long side to make it go up there. If your long positions could demand delivery, we might get some interest from packers, even some regional or small packers that want cattle at the prices that are advertised on the CME live cattle contract. But without that ability to demand delivery on the cattle, there's really no way or no reason for those to converge. But if they don't converge, what good are they? It's a broken contract. Your hedged cattle feeders, they're tickled with it because they always get a basis there to help them reach their break-evens, which is nice. But in the whole scheme of things for your cattle market, it would work a whole lot better if they would come together at fruition of that contract. But August feeder cattle keep backing up to our current cash prices, even though we know that cattle are worth more if you deliver them out into the future. And those August contract cattle, those include your late summer delivery cattle off grass, those ones coming off the Blue Stem and the Flint Hills and the Osage. So those are the best feeding cattle of the year that come up for sale. Your North Kansas feeders and a lot of your Nebraska feeders are waiting space for those cattle. They want those cattle. Those cattle will gain 4.5 pounds a day and maybe 3 at night. They will absolutely gain their heads off and will perform to no end. And then when we get to those cattle, we're going to see the cash price on those go up beyond what the market is, because those feeders know how well that they will perform. But it just continues to back up to our current cash prices here on cattle that are mostly backgrounded cattle that don't gain nearly as well as those green grass yearlings. But your box beef cutout values plunged on Tuesday. So, maybe the packers are getting enough resistance on selling that spot market beef that they can't push it anymore. But your packers are really getting tough on gaining on this market, gaining any more ground. They felt like that 190 live and that $3 a pound in the meat was more than they wanted to give. They've been backing off since then. We know that they're short bought because they didn't buy hardly any cattle in the negotiated market last week, relied heavily on their formulas, and they're not really coming to the plate this week. And I know it's just Tuesday, but we're seeing some serious resistance here to get any higher. And all the while, interest is piling up. I talked to guys at Background Cattle and feed a lot of cattle, and they said, we really didn't even figure interest in here over the last several years because money's been so cheap. But now interest is in some cases twice as high as it was just a couple of 3 years ago, and it's starting to make a big difference and especially on those guys that buy those really light cattle and keep them for a year. That interest is starting to make a pretty big difference. But our cattle on feed estimates come out on Tuesday, or we got to where we could see them. We might have got to see them earlier in the week if we hadn't had the federal holiday. We were hoping for a big bullish cattle on feed report. Remains to be seen. Your on feed estimates for June the 1st come out at 96.8, and the average of the analyst guess was very, very narrow. They feel pretty confident on that 96.8, which sounds pretty logical there at 96.8% of the number of cattle on feed at the same time a year ago. Placements we thought might be a little bit more bullish than that, but the average of the analyst guess come out at 101.7, and some averages come out higher than that, over 102. And you think, well, how can that be when we are so short on cattle? Well, if you look at your auction receipts, they actually warrant a much higher placement average than what they put out there. But like I've been saying here over the last several weeks, they're just selling them back and forth to each other because the market's been going up so big. And I think a lot of those cattle that are in that placement range, in your 7 to 900 pound cattle, I think a lot of those 7-weight cattle for sure are going back on grass because some areas, major grazing areas, have received moisture later in the year, later in the spring than what they normally do, and so they're buying cattle and they're going to put those on grass, cheapen them up a little bit, and then put them on feed later. But why is that? Why is the receipt so much heavier? Well, we've talked many times about it. More people put cattle through the auctions. Cattle, or guys that normally sell in the country direct, they're more apt to send cattle to the auction when the market's really, really bad or really, really good. Well, the market's been really, really good, and you haven't heard a lot of just plain old private treaty direct cattle selling anymore because they're selling so good in the auctions. Why wouldn't you take them into the sale, pay a small commission, and get the big price for them? And so more of those are being reported. Your analysts are seeing more of those go through than normal. And I really feel like maybe our placements could be a little lighter than that 101.7. But I guess we'll find out on Friday at 2 o'clock Central. Marketing's come in at 101.6. Quite a bit higher than a year ago figures, and we've been running below 100% here the last few reports there, but they usually nail those pretty close, so we're not going to question that much. Talk about your board on Tuesday. June live cattle futures down $1.22 to start the week, because you remember Monday we're closed for Juneteenth, but sitting at 177.12, and we had fat cattle sales in the mid 180s. We're working towards the back end of June. It's not going to converge. If futures market price does not converge at fruition, what good is it? August live cattle futures down 202, sitting under 170 now, just for August. Really? At 169.70. We do not see heavier supplies of market-ready cattle coming around the corner anytime soon. Most all your feeders have been pulling cattle ahead, and their show lists are just getting greener and greener all the time. But your back months on live cattle were down $1.02 to down $1.90. August feeder cattle down 277 at 230.215. And like I said, that's still a $10 premium to what our cash index levels are right now. But those are those best cattle. Those are those best green grass yearlings that we're talking about in August, and I think they should stay at a pretty good premium. But September feeder cattle down 255 at 235.62. Your back months were all down big too, down $1.47 to down 252. December new crop corn was unchanged on Tuesday, ending regular trading at 5.97 cents a bushel. New crop November beans up 0.5 cents all at 13.42 3/4. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for September down 4.5 cents at 8.34.5. Talk about a little dribble of trade that happened on Tuesday in your direct fed cattle marketing out of your 5 area feeding region. Iowa sold about 100 head at 184. That's off their market. They should be at least $3 or $4 higher there. Not sure why those cattle sold. Didn't see any confirmed sales out of Nebraska on Tuesday. I did hear of some cattle that sold on Tuesday dressed at 290 for the second week of July. And then maybe the seller there just thought that was the best he was going to get and went ahead and sold them out front. But normally when you sell them out front, that does not bode well, because we don't want the packers to really get set up for a fall on the market side. But Kansas sold 700 head at 186. That'd be pretty good for Kansas there at 186, and I'm sure they were good cattle. Probably went north to a northern packer there, but Texas didn't have any confirmed sales on Tuesday. We'll see what happens as we develop through the week. But our biggest fat cattle market in an in-house brick and mortar sale barn is Stockman's Livestock Market in Yankton, South Dakota. They had a good sale on Tuesday. Only 600 head in overnight, which is lighter than normal, but about 1,800 head altogether, which is not bad. Your market was higher. The finish on the cattle was better than last week. The cattle were more attractive for the packers, but conventional cattle, just straight up cattle, sold from 183 to 192 1/4. We don't see that in the country. That was $1 to $5 higher than last week. Your program cattle, drug-free and non-implanted cattle, sell from 188 to 199.50. The highest cattle we've seen sold at Yankton was there a couple of weeks ago on some prime heifers at 202, but 199.50 on the top side. That sounds awfully good. $3.50 to $4 higher there than last week. But we got to appreciate Gary Mark's work there. He shares that information with me so I can share it with you. Box beef cutout values, like I said earlier, they plunged. Choice cuts down $323 on Tuesday at $336.91. Selects down $283 at $307.93. Slaughter is running at a rampant pace so far this week. Just through the first 2 days of the week, 253,000 harvested, 5,000 more than the same time a week ago, 4,000 more than the same time a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. MLS blocks, high performance tubs, low moisture cooked molasses tubs provide controlled, consistent supplement delivery. We've been spotlighting some of the best providers of MLS tubs, and your June spotlight is on Cowtown Ag Supply out of Miles City, Montana. For more information on MLS tubs, go to mlstubs.com. And your feeder cattle market on Tuesday, your real-time index on DB auction based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states ended the day on Tuesday at 222.32. Basically steady, down just 2 cents per hundredweight, so that's about as close to steady as you can get. Your CME is pretty close to that. Of course, it's the latest available was for Monday, and it was 222.68, but it'll back up here just a little bit, and they run scary close all the time. We're talking about your big sales on Tuesday. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri, 4,300 head through the ring. That's big time for this time of the year, guys. But the market's good. It's bringing them out of the bushes. 4,300 head through the ring in West Plains. Another over 900 head on their in-house video auction that they do with help from DB Auction. Steer calves were mostly steady. Heifer calves steady to $4 higher. Yearlings sold steady to $2 higher. Stick-out sale in West Plains was 60 head of 901-pound yearling steers, bring $219.75 in extreme south central Missouri. Your National Beef Wire stick-out sale of the day was Kimball Livestock Exchange in Kimball, South Dakota. About 2,700 head of feeders went through the ring there in Kimball. Look at your automated auction market report there from Cattle Market Central, and you see your best tested weights. 215 head of 7-weight steers, average 755 with a weighted average price of $241.97. 490 head of 8-weight steers in Kimball had an average weight of $846 and a weighted average price of $227.54. 469 head of 9-weight steers averaged 963 on the top side with a weighted average price of $211.62. Look at some heifers. How about 307 head of 6-weight heifers in Kimball, South Dakota? Average weight on those 656 pounds. Weighted average price $238.70. 322 head of 7-weight heifers average $733. Average price $224.94. And 324 head of 8-weight heifers averaged $823 with a weighted average price of $215.90. Very impressive on heavy heifers like that. I'm going to give you some individual quotes. How about Beaver County Stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma? Right there in no man's land in the Oklahoma Panhandle. They sell 62 steers, weigh 773 at $230 a pound. How about Kingsville Livestock Auction in Kingsville, Missouri, west central Missouri? There are 69 head of steers, weighed 605 at $274. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday, near Macrison, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Denny Rezac Livestock Commission in St. Mary's, Kansas. 103 head of 916-pound steers bring $234. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.